This is Picks on Politics with Dan Mannarino.
And welcome to Picks on Politics, everybody. I am Dan Mannarino. And with the elections behind us, the newly elected leaders look now to build on what they promised to voters, setting the foundation for when the real work begins in January. Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill delivering her last speech on the House floor this week as she moves into her new role now as governor of New Jersey. And I spoke with the governor-elect this week. Here's our conversation. And Governor-elect Mikie Sherrill is joining me now. Great to see you, and a big congratulations.
Thanks so much. Great to see you.
So let me ask you first and foremost how the transition is going. I know you jumped right in. You met with Governor Phil Murphy. How's it going?
It's going great. There are people on my team that have been hard at work at this since August, really. I had to jump out a little bit, as you can imagine, in the last weeks in October. Yeah. There was something going on. But I've been dying to get to it. And so we hit the ground running day one, meeting with the governor, members of the Senate and Assembly Majority Leadership Team, and then I've met with minority members. So really looking to deliver for the people of New Jersey as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I see that you opened a portal accepting applications for new jobs, right? How many applications are you looking at here? And can you kind of explain how that all works? You know, because there are people who are currently working for the government. So do those folks get replaced, or do some of them keep their jobs?
Well, there's career civil servants who work have worked for Christie, some of them work for the governor, et cetera. And then there are people in leadership positions who will be coming on to enact my vision and my mission. Yeah. And so there will be new leadership, a lot of new leadership positions being filled by my team. So it's kind of a mix there's nuts and bolts of running government. So there's some arcane budget issues that people need to have a lot of technical information about, like in 1867 they did this for this, right. That kind of stuff. So you really need those people in the government who can walk you through what's legal, what's not, what's constitutional in New Jersey, et cetera, and why. And then you have people like the commissioners, the commissioner of education or environment, who will come in to really be with a team enacting a new mission.
Any names you want to throw out right now, or keeping those under wraps?
Well, as you've probably seen, we've announced the transition lead, yes, which is my Lieutenant Governor, Dale Caldwell, and Kelly Doucette. And then I've announced my Chief of Staff, Alex Ball, and Tim Lydon, who will be Chief Counsel. And then we'll be rolling out more announcements in the coming days and weeks. Okay,
Governor-elect, I want to go back to election night, right? Because polling showed this to be an extremely tight race. And I spoke to Democrats and Republicans. I'm a Jersey guy myself. And both sides were nervous going in just because of how tight it was. And then the polls closed. We here at Pix 11 called it within minutes after the polls closed. And in the end, it was a 14-point margin, right? So were you a little bit nervous going into election night? And how do you think things played out now with this wide margin?
No, I wasn't. We had a huge Democratic firewall going into the election, about 300,000 people from both vote by mail and early in-person voting. And so we had a lot of confidence going into election day. And at that point, it was just really getting out our vote. We'd put together an incredible field team, the likes of which the state had never seen. And we were really pulling out votes from places normally Democrats don't have a field team in. But I come from those suburbs. I have done tons of work, for example, in Morris County, which I won for the first time since Watergate. So I was in every corner of the state. At the end of my campaign, I did a 21 county bus tour because I'm committed to serving everyone in New Jersey and growing that coalition of what it's going to take for working people to have opportunity in our state. And that's kind of different from, I think, previous ways of running campaigns here. So it was really effective. And I think speaks to people being connected to my vision of bold leadership, of delivering, and then their trust in me because I'm both a veteran and a mom. So I think they trusted that I would see that vision out.
And you did something really interesting in all of the counties in New Jersey. Now, in the last presidential election, people were saying, President Trump closed the gap and narrowed the margins in New Jersey. You have taken those margins and brought them over to the left in every single county. And I'm wondering what you attribute that to. Is it the economy? Was the government shutdown a part of it?
Certainly, I think the constant hits and attacks from the Trump administration on the economy, on affordability, on taking away opportunity. And what I focused on and what I will continue to focus on is opportunity. That has been so intrinsic to the middle class and working people here in this country for decades. Certainly, I charted out in my campaign often about my own family and my grandpa's union job and my dad's ability to pay for himself to get through college, and opening up the military to combat on ships and aircraft for women, and all of the opportunity that I've seen grow, the ability for so many people to compete, to have a seat at the table. And that's what I think connected to working people, whether in Gloucester County or in Essex County. That idea that I'm going to fight hard
Yeah.
to create, great education, great opportunity, great jobs here in this state was really compelling.
And Democrats celebrated big wins in your race and really across the country on election night. But some folks are saying that Democrats fumbled the ball in recent days with the votes on the government shutdown, right? So do you think that there was a bit of a fumbling in that moment within the party?
I've expressed my frustration. I certainly think that we really need new, bold leadership, and that was not exhibited by the Senate. And that's why I think governors have become so important in this fight, to really show how we're fighting for people, what we can do to actually create opportunity and fight against an economy that is really, I think, creating huge problems for working people, whether it's raising costs on coffee, on your cup of coffee in the morning, your grocery store prices, or even the college kids I've spoken to who are looking at a job market that doesn't seem to have a place for them. Whereas just a year ago, we were talking to companies that were expanding. So that's right on the table. That's
Yeah.
what Democrats have to do. I don't, it doesn't seem as if some of our more senior leadership is up for that fight. That's why I think a new generation of leaders is taking our seat at the table.
Yeah, and so in the days, weeks, and months ahead, obviously you are laser focused on some of the things you talked about during your campaign, but you do need the federal government help for some of it, right? So just curious, have you had any conversations with the White House, with the president, since your win?
I've had conversations with people in this administration about what we can do and how we can partner on things like infrastructure projects. But really, when I speak to the president, I really want to hear, and I'm going to
Yeah.
ask for understanding of where this administration is going on healthcare. They have torn down a lot of the structures, whether it's Medicare or the Affordable Care Act. We're seeing people's premiums here are going up by about 175%. So this must be addressed. Even Jeff Van Drew, who is a close ally of the president's, has been very clear in saying healthcare is something that has to be handled.
Yeah.
And certainly with the federal government, with the president, with the Senate and the House in Republican hands, we have seen zero plans for that. And that is something that I would like to address right away.
Yeah, Governor-elect, speaking of the president, he said that the Gateway Tunnel project was absolutely terminated here. And I know that was an issue towards the end of the campaign. So where does that project stand now, and how will you fight for it once you are sworn in?
Right now, it sounds as if we have the near-term funding, so I'll continue to fight to make sure all of the funding continues to come in. So we'll move along, because as we know, that project is responsible for almost 100,000 jobs in the region. 200,000 commuters take it a day. So that is a critical program to ensure the economy continues to grow. And as we see all the economic problems in this administration, and an area that can produce about 20% of the nation's GDP, the investment in this area will be critical if we want to keep our economy on some level of sustainability.
And speaking of transit, when I spoke to you during the campaign many times, Chris Calori's name came up and you said you would keep him on, but obviously he has other plans. He just announced that he's going to leave at the end of January. So any names that are surfacing for NJ Transit?
We've had a couple of great names floated, so we're interviewing people, and hopefully we'll have some details soon.
Oh, come on, give me something.
We just have a really great talent pool in this area.
Yeah.
And what I am looking for are leaders who are going to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
There's some, I said during my campaign often, there's the right way, the wrong way, and the New Jersey way.
Yeah.
We need to kind of break out of that mindset and really take on innovation. That's what our state has been famous for historically. So I want to reinvigorate that as we move forward.
And obviously, just kind of looking at your seat, you're going to officially resign from Congress next week, right? And there's a lot of attention now being placed on the 11th District of New Jersey, and the Lieutenant Governor is throwing her name in, amongst others. Anybody you are going to support early on?
It is sort of a travesty of riches. We have great candidates running. So I can't wait to see who the people of the 11th district choose.
All right, Governor-elect, I have to ask you one final question. It may be the toughest yet, and it's something I heard you say during the campaign, and it's about Taylor ham. It's a thing. I mean, do you said it, do you not like it? What is it?
I said that I didn't like the description of it as pork roll. That did not sound appetizing to me. So I obviously love Taylor ham. In fact, when I was asked to go on a cooking show at Montclair State University a couple months ago, I made something that my husband, I think he invented. Somebody will probably challenge me, but he calls it eggs Montclair instead of eggs Benedict. And instead of Canadian bacon, it has Taylor ham in it. So it is certainly a staple in my family.
Okay, I'd like, you know what? That's our next story. I'm going to come get one of those from your husband, all right?
They're delicious.
All right.
I can't say they're like super health conscious, but they're delicious.
Oh, good. Governor-elect Mikie Sherrill, one of many conversations. Great to have you. Thank you for coming on.